Every year, an estimated 600,000 people die from drug overdoses. That's nearly the entire population of Surrey, gone in a single year. It isn't even a recent crisis, but it has reached unmatched levels in recent decades, fueled by the rise of synthetic opioids like fentanyl. For years, the response to addiction was punitive, arresting the users, criminalizing possession, and hoping the fear of punishment would discourage others. But here's a problem. Addiction doesn't care about laws. Despite these measures, overdose rates kept climbing. In response, many cities have constructed a new solution: supervised consumption sites. These facilities aim to save lives by providing a safe, controlled environment where people can use drugs under medical supervision. But they have been hit with fierce criticism. Some view these sites as a lifeline for many people. Others consider them as fostering drug use. This raises a crucial question. How do supervised drug consumption sites represent progress or change in addressing addiction? How has the implementation of these sites influenced their local communities, and what changes in public perception have emerged as a result? To understand everything properly, we need to understand the science of addiction first. Let's split this into 3 parts, starting with the reward system. Our brains are meant to reward activities that help you survive and thrive whenever you do something that has meaning to you. It does this by releasing dopamine, which is a type of chemical. Dopamine is a catecholamine, which refers to the fact that it contains a catechol nucleus. To synthesize dopamine, the amino acid tyrosine is converted to L-dopa. Then, it is decarboxylated to form dopamine. Finally, it acts as a transmitter of signals between the nerve cells. Moving on to the drug impact. Drugs like cocaine and methamphetamine hijack this reward system, flooding the brain with unnaturally high levels of dopamine or directly stimulating opioid receptors. This creates an intense euphoria far beyond what natural rewards can do. The last part is tolerance and dependency. Over time, the brain adapts to this intense feeling. This means that the user needs higher and higher doses to achieve the same effect. Eventually, they don't take the drug to feel good, but to feel normal and to avoid withdrawal. What basically happens during withdrawal includes nausea, vomiting, sweating, shakiness, and anxiety. As they take more and more of the drug, they can experience an overdose. During this, the system is overloaded and the human is unable to perform some basic functions, such as breathing or blinking. In some cases, this can be fatal. Now, let's analyze the impact of supervised drug consumption sites through data. Take this graph as an example. Notice how in between 2017 and 2018, the rates seem to have stalled. This is because drug consumption sites were popularized at this moment. Before that, the rates were actually spiking. I plugged the values into my TI-84 calculator, and using some formulas, it estimated that the value of 2018 would have been 2,246 without the sites. This means that roughly 700 people's lives were saved this way, which is an incredible 33% decrease in overdose deaths. Interestingly, the death rates plummeted in 2019, which is likely because of COVID. People who died of an overdose could have been mistaken for COVID, but the more logical reasoning is that everybody had less access to drugs because of the lockdown, so the stats would obviously be lower. The conclusion from this graph is that forcefully preventing people from getting addicted in the first place works, but drug consumption sites also work. But once drugs became more accessible again, the rates naturally spiked. This leads to the fact that force doesn't necessarily stop people from wanting drugs again after they become more available. Critics question whether supervised consumption sites truly tackle the root of the problem. Rudy Fortson, a British author, argued that by legitimizing drug use, these sites may accidentally attract more users to surrounding neighborhoods. This has led to concerns about increased crime, public safety, and declining property values. A study in 2024 highlighted the discomfort of having a site near schools or homes, where families fear exposure to drug-related activities. Others see the dip in overdose deaths as proof of effectiveness. Another study named Vincent Tran said that these sites simply concentrated everyone in that one area. Without it, they would be dispersed all over the place. They could be taking drugs in areas much more dangerous to the public, such as in public restrooms or parks. He also noted how public drug use and syringe litter decreased a noticeable amount after sites near them were introduced. There are also other factors that vary across different sites. Vaughn W. Berry, a public health expert, suggested that the real potential of supervised consumption sites was how they connected to a broader strategy, including mental health support, housing, and therapy. In response, some claimed that these sites didn't fit into the big picture at all because all they did was provide drugs under medical watch. But upon closer look, others countered this because the medical professionals actually connected and talked with the clients within the site, as well as gradually transferring them to rehabilitation. While both sides are contrasting, they're also perfectly reasonable, so I decided to get first-hand experience by visiting a drug consumption site in Surrey. When heading there, I did not know what to expect. I prepared questionnaires hoping to have a medical professional answer them for me. As I arrived, I saw a ton of people crammed into a tiny courtyard. It was like this, and this. Due to privacy reasons, I can't show any clear pictures. There was a small building next to it, and it didn't even really look like a site, just an old shack. Based on the people's actions, they didn't really look mentally stable. I took a tour of the community as well. About a kilometer or so away, I saw a few people heading towards the site. It's true that these sites do attract more drug users and encourage them to settle down in their nearby communities. Many people don't feel comfortable having a drug consumption site close by, and that's completely understandable. Here, there is a soccer field just a few hundred meters away from the site, and the parents wouldn't feel comfortable having their kids play with drug users on the sidewalk. But the result after that visit was that there was no real right answer. Both sides made sense. The medical professionals haven't fully answered some of my questions, so I sent some emails out to other sites and people to solidify my research, with about 10 sent out in total, but I didn't get any responses. There was one more thing that I realized. From what I saw on the internet, supervised consumption sites seemed to all look the same. A site with the blue building was very different from them. For example, there was only one small room compared to the other huge clean facilities I could find online. I went to another site in person, and it was again different. They're extremely strict on privacy rules, and they prioritize mental health help rather than safe drug use. Sites may look similar online, but there are many factors that determine its effectiveness. If one doesn't get proper funding, it's basically pointless. If the community had low overdose rates in the first place, having one there wouldn't make any dramatic changes. How helpful the medical professionals are depends on the site and area, and there's so much more. Overall, the effectiveness of a site will vary a lot when considering the finer details. To conclude, supervised consumption sites in general have represented both progress and change. Let's first start with how they represented progress. 1. They reduced overdose deaths by providing safe doses under medical watch. 2. In some cases, medical professionals also address mental safety and try to find the root of the problem. 3. By moving drug consumption off the streets, the visibility of drug use decreases to a more confined area. Note that this only happens in areas that used to have a lot of drug use in the public before the site or sites opened. Now, moving on to the changes or negative impacts. 1. Supervised consumption sites could potentially normalize substance use in the area. 2. Some sites don't address the roots of the problem, so people might go back to drugs after help. 3. The presence of a supervised consumption site may lead to feelings or discomfort or unease among nearby residents. Even if crime rates remain stable, the idea of living near a site can affect how residents feel about their community. While supervised drug consumption sites have shown potential in reducing overdose deaths and connecting individuals with services, their long-term impact on addiction rates and community perceptions remain a complex and evolving issue. Special thanks to Akash, Thien, Mikhil, and Abdeli for peer reviewing my inquiry. Thank you to my parents for taking me to visit the sites. Thank you to my sister for giving me a quiet place to record. Last but not least, thank you Mr. Burdett and Ms. Sidhu for feedback and guidance along the way.